So what's the most important message that you have for students when they hear your story today?
What is the most? Well, I hope they're going to be a very, very good grown-up people, no hate, no because of the other religion problems and the color and nationality. We all have the same God, and I just wanted to see all kids to growing up in peace and happiness and no more hate, never again. Different life and better life, and if they are peace and they have a warm heart and they love people, each other, respect each other, everything gonna be okay.
So, the moment everyone's been waiting for. So, here's Mrs. Voss. She's going to be here to talk to us about her experiences in the Holocaust. And turn my microphone. So, Mrs. Voss is here, and on behalf of the Van Heusen community, we're really, really excited to have you here and to share your story. Thank you. And to let everyone know how this is going to work. So Mrs. Orsargas and myself are going to be conducting the interview. And then, so this is Mrs. Voss. This is her daughter, Mrs. Rowe. So with that, you may hear, like she will, I'll ask her a question. She will go and explain her answer. And you may hear me kind of explain it so that you can understand some of the things maybe we haven't talked about in time. So we'll get started. One thing to jump right in is if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself prior to your experiences in the Holocaust. So how old were you?
I was 16 years old. In 1944, March 19, Hitler marched in Hungary with his army. We were in panic. They announced it right away on the radio, we are not supposed to leave our homes. The following day, they announced that we have to take all the jewelry, money, and the safe deposit key into the German headquarters. My father took everything what we had about. A week later, the German announced again, the radio and the newspaper, we had to leave our home and we can take with us 15-pound clothing and nothing else. And we have to be ready to go to the ghetto. We were in a ghetto from my hometown, about 2,000 people. The ghetto was unspeakable. They started to hitting us. Blood was all over in a short time. In the ghetto, lots of people died, especially older people. No food, no medicine. About 4 weeks later, we had to leave the ghetto, and they took us to the railroad station. About 45 boxcars was waiting for us. We had enough room for about 30 people, and they pushed us in the boxcar, approximately 100 people. I remember the day was June 20, and the temperature was 92, no food, no water. We were so thirsty, dying for water. The Germans were hitting us, our family was trying to be close to each other. My great-grandmother, 82 years old, was with us, and the German Nazi yelled to my great-grandmother, "Hurry, hurry, you old woman, go on the train." And my great-grandma said to the German, "I am 82 years old, I'm trying my best." The German took his gun out from his pocket and shot her. Our family was numb, impossible to explain what we went through. My great-grandmother's son was with us also, and he had a praying book in his pocket, and he started to pray with us. over her dead body. We had to go on the train and we had to leave her on the ground. God only knows what happened to her body.
Okay, so I'll kind of recap some of the things that she had mentioned. So the German army marched on your home. They took all of your belongings and moved into a ghetto with over 2,000 people crammed in. And only 4 weeks later, you were pushed into a boxcar.
Yeah.
That would be a train that they're just crammed into. And then here you saw, I'm sure, what was a life-altering situation with your grandmother.
Yes.
She was 82 years old.
She was 82 years old.
And so in front of you, you saw your great-grandmother shot in front of you.
Yes.
So in the aftermath of this event, you mentioned you found prayer. Did religion help you during the Holocaust?
Religion?
Yeah, so like, I think when you are explaining this, it's hard to fathom how do you move on from this. So how did you, after seeing what happened to your great-grandmother, how were you able to move
My
on?
great-grandmother was a very, very nice lady, a religious lady. She was always good to everybody. And then I thought, God, how can that happen? How can you do this to the German, killing my family? And my great-grandmother was full of blood on the ground, and the train started moving, and we had to leave her there, and we don't know where she's going to, who's going to make a cemetery or something to her, what's going to happen to her. We had to leave her on the ground. And in the boxcar, we didn't have a toilet. They gave us a pill. We were traveling 4 days and 4 nights. Finally, we arrived in Auschwitz, Poland. The biggest concentration camp with a huge gas chamber. When we arrived in Auschwitz, they put a number on everyone's chest with permanent ink. They referred to us only by number, not by our names. The German built gas chamber all over in Poland and German. 100 gas chamber in the beginning when they first started taking people to the concentration camp. They didn't have gas chamber yet. They forced the people to dig their own graveyard. When the graveyard was huge enough, the Germans shot the people right into the graveyard. Some people were still alive in the graveyard. You could see the people moving who were not completely dead. The German engineers got together and they tried to figure it out how to kill the people faster. Every day they killed with the gas, 1,000 and 1,000 people. After the German burned the body, they made soap out of the body fat. They gave us the soap to use clean ourselves, and we didn't know that. The German made material out of people's hair and used that material to make mattress, lampshade. They took out all gold teeth from the dead people. Out of the bones they made false teeth and sent it from Auschwitz to Germany. They used the ashes from the bodies from the fertilization.
Wow. So to kind of sum up again some of this, so you went from the ghetto essentially straight to Auschwitz, and then here you're seeing a lot of horrors that are going on that are just essentially unspeakable, really bad things happening. One of the famous things that is known at Auschwitz is the tattoo that people have. So can I ask, do you still have, or do you have a tattoo?
No, we were supposed to have it, but I don't know what happened. They changed. We don't have that. but million people had it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, can you tell us a little bit about what life was like for you and your family in Auschwitz? Because who were you with at that time in Auschwitz? Who was with you? Was it?
Who was with me
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Auschwitz?
Was
Okay,
it?
can I say? Okay, when we arrived in Auschwitz, my 42 years old mother, my 22 years old sister, me, I was 16 years old, and my 13 years old sister were together, holding each other hand tight. Thousands and thousands of Nazi Germans were waiting for us. Every Nazi had a huge, vicious dog. We had to stay in line when a tall, good-looking Nazi arrived, and he was a famous murderer. His name was Dr. Mengele. He decided who is going to right and who is going to left. People to the right went to the gas chamber, and who was standing to the left had to go to work. Dr. Mengele sent the people who were over 40 years old and all the children to the gas chamber. The German Nazis killed 6 million people and 1.5 million children. When I was separated from my mother and my 13 years old sister, everything happened so fast we didn't have time to say goodbye to each other.
So, Dr. Mengele, we've had a brief discussion with him. So he's the infamous person at the camp, and there's many stories of how horrible he was. He decided who lived and died, and then the people got off the trains at Auschwitz, and so he would say, you go to the right, you die, you live if you go to the left, but to the left that lived would be in horrible conditions. So at this point, he's standing there. This man here is saying separated you and your mother and your 13-year-old sister. And you were 16?
I was 16.
And you were 16. So at that moment, did you think you would see them again when you separated?
Well, I tell you later, okay? We saw a person who had striped clothing on and thought he was a prisoner. We asked him, where are the older people and the children going? He was pointing his hand to the sky, and we were shaking what we saw. A very, very thick black smoke came out from a chimney. That means they were burning the people. Me and my sister thought, this man must be crazy. Unfortunately, later on, we find out he was right. Then later took us thousands and thousands of people to a huge room and shaved our whole body everywhere. After shaving, the crowd of people were in the room. I was looking for my sister, and we had a hard time to find each other because we didn't recognize each other with the bald head. Then after they took us to the barrack, we were packed in the barrack like sardines. We didn't have a place to lay down on the naked floor. Everybody was screaming and crying. We didn't have enough room to lay down. To the barrack roof wasn't finished yet. It was raining. We were soaking wet, hungry, freezing. We all felt. One night we were crazy, not normal anymore. They gave us a boot shoes. Later we used the boot shoes as a pillow for the night. We also put our bread into the shoes for safe, because people was stealing the bread from each other. The following day, we had to go out from the barrack, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the Germans counted us to make sure that nobody was missing. After the Germans counted us 6 a.m., they took us to work for breakfast, horrible black coffee, later for dinner, a piece of bread made out of wood sawdust. Sometimes for lunch we got soup, but it tasted and looked like it was made out of from grass. The other days there was no lunch.
So living in the barracks in these conditions, so the barracks are the essentially houses, if you want to call them that people would have to go and live in. Here you can see how crammed they are, and it's unimaginable. They have, I showed you some pictures of the ones that were in Buchenwald, and they use that similar setup throughout the different places. If I can share the quick story that we had when we came, when you arrived. So an interesting thing is for a lot of the survivors, this idea of how it's changed them and how they react to things a little different than maybe what we do. She was saying, or your daughter was saying how she values food maybe a lot more than we do. And that would be because during this time, food would be very hard to get by. It wasn't something that, if we're hungry, we can just go and grab something to eat. We talked about how the people in the Holocaust only had maybe 80 to 100 calories a day, which is next to nothing. So I thought that was really interesting when you shared how even today, would you agree that food means something more?
Food, we always thinking about food, day and night. We was hungry, starving, we was skin and bones. And I was dreaming always, in my dream also, I was always home, and I saw my mother set the table, and the food was on the table, and I was so happy in my dream. And when I woke up, what a horrible feeling I had. I am in the concentration camp and starving, and it was unbelievable the way they treat us.
So these dreams would have helped you maybe get through these really hard
And I don't know why they treat us, just because the religion.
Yeah.
We don't hurt nobody. My parents and everybody was a good people, and just because of religion, that's all.
So just because you were Jewish, you didn't understand why
Yeah.
you were being picked on. Thank you for sharing that. And then I know something very life-changing as well happened to you at this camp regarding your sister. Can you tell us about this event?
Yeah. The work was very, very hard. We had to carry bricks in our arm to build a barrack. The Germans stood behind us, watching for the people who were not able to carry the bricks. The German used a whip and hitting us, the person until the person collapsed. Every day in Auschwitz we had to do this very, very hard work. I was in Auschwitz 2 months. My sister, Dr. Mengele, made a selection and he separated us. I was in panic. I had only my sister. Excuse me. Dr. Mengele made a selection and he separated us. I was in panic. I had only my sister with me. Out of the whole family. I ran after her. I was crying. I bent down to my knee, asking him, "Don't take my sister away from me." And he started to hit me until I was unconscious. Somebody took me back to the barrack. About 2 days, I was in coma. After I woke up, I didn't know where am I. Later, actually, I realized that what happened. I am alone in Auschwitz without my sister. Me and my sister, we were very close. I was staying in Auschwitz for 4 weeks, longer after the separation from my sister.
Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing that that's extremely hard to share. And with that, coming into it, we had talked and knowing that that was going to be extremely hard to share, and but yet we made it a point saying that that's part of the story, and you have to get it out. So I appreciate you
being able to.
That was unbelievable. I can't explain that pain.
Yeah.
But I had. I was all alone, a 16 years old child. No mother, no father, nobody at all. Only my sister was with me, and she was just like a mother to me. She was 5 years older than me, and all of a sudden, she disappeared from my life.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the thing for everyone here is it is unbelievable for us to understand what you went through. And then just kind of, in case you missed some of that, so Dr. Mengele, we talked about him, and so he made a selection and separated her with her sister, and then when she woke up from the coma after being beaten following this separation, or following it, did you know what happened to your sister at that time? Like, when your sister was separated,
Yes.
did you have an idea of what happened to her?
When I woke up, I didn't know where am I. I was in a barrack laying on the floor, full of blood and naked. And then I started to look around and thinking about it. What's happening? Where am I? And then later I said, I was with my sister and not too long ago. And what happened? I am here on the floor. And then I realized that what happened. Then I felt the whole life collapse on me.
So, speaking of Dr. Mengele, was this the only time that he made a selection?
So Mengele made another selection again, and they took us to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp with a car box in Germany. Bergen-Belsen was also a horrible place. Probably you heard about Anna Frank. She died there just about 2 weeks before the liberation. She died from typhus disease. Her mother and sister also. We were working there also very, very hard. The Germans treated us. We were treated in Auschwitz. Lots of people went insane there. One night a young Polish girl was screaming and crying. She kept on saying, Mama, Mama, I want to be with you, but I don't have a map to the heaven. I don't know how to go there. I want to see you. A couple hours later, the German took her to the gas chamber.
So, amidst seeing people, as you said, go crazy, and a girl saying she doesn't have a map to heaven,
She was,
yeah. So, one can only imagine what that is like to be surrounded by this. So, how were you able to, amidst this horrific event, keep your own sanity? How were you able to get yourself through this?
we all felt crying and we felt horrible. And we thought that probably that's going to happen with us too.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about, and she also mentioned she's at Bergen-Belsen. So this happened with several of the people, well, many of the people in the Holocaust, that they might get bounced around from place to place without any rhyme or reason. And so she went from Auschwitz, where the selection was made, and then she's at Bergen-Belsen, which is another big, famous concentration camp. And then, can you tell us about how the Nazis in those camps treated you? So, like the guards and the people that were there. And the guards, by the way, would outnumber the people in the camp like 200 to 1. But again, the guards would have all the guns, the weapons, to keep the people.
And I have a question. Anybody heard about Anna Frank?
Oh,
Anne Frank, how many of you have heard of Anne Frank?
good. So, majority of you. Good. Very good. Lots of people.
So, okay, I can go.
Yep. So, can you tell us about how the Nazis treated you in camp, the guards? So, yes, you can do that.
Okay. The barrack was made out of canvas material, and somebody got a piece out of the canvas. The Nazi, the head of the camp, announced on the microphone, everybody has to come out from the barrack and stand in line. He started yelling, "Who cut a piece out of the canvas?" Nobody said anything. He said, "Okay, if the person doesn't come out and say the truth, then I'm going to kill every 10 of you." We were standing 14 hours, no food or water all day. Later at night, they let us go back to the barrack. I remember the day exactly because it was October 17, my birthday. We were in Bergen-Belsen 4 months. People were dying like flies. We were skin and bones. After Bergen-Belsen, they took us to the other camp called Markleberg. It was a winter time. Hundreds and hundreds of Germans were waiting for us, and they started hitting us right away. They took us to work. The winter was very harsh, very, very cold. We didn't have a coat, no underwear. We had to shovel the frozen ground. Later, we were working in an airplane factory, 12 hours a day. The head of the camp was a bloodthirsty man. He was hitting people until he would see blood. We were starving, freezing, every one of us, thinking about us, food, thinking about my family, my home, my mother, and my dream. I was always home. We were lucky bed about 4 months.
So, to kind of sum up a little bit as well, you just described the work being excruciating, with being given little food at the camps. You had to stand for 14 hours straight. People around you were dying. People, including yourself, were beaten up. And you just mentioned at the end, in my dream, I was always home. So what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Always home. That was in my dream all the time.
So you were able to kind of escape?
Yes, I'm home, I'm eating,
Yeah.
and drinking water, and I see my mother and my family in my dream. And I woke up and it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So, okay, I know.
Yeah.
One day in April, the head of the Nazi made an announcement on the microphone. Everybody has to come out from the barrack. We were shaking what was going on to happen. And he started to talk normally to us. And he said, "I have a good news for you, all of you. The American army is almost here already. And you are going to be free. You stay here, and the American army is going to take you over, and I'm leaving you. And I hope you are going to say to the Americans, I was good to you." He had a nerve to ask us that. Then, a few minutes later, another Nazi came, and he said to the first Nazi, "Stop the talk. I have to tell you something. You have a phone call and you have to come for a minute. Somebody wants to talk to you." Then the first Nazi came back and he said, "Everything has changed. I had a phone call and we have to leave and go 8 kilometers away to the railroad station, and we were sure the German was going to take us to the gas chamber." We started to walk, and most of the Nazis followed us with car. We left the railroad station and we walked 16 days and night, no food or water. We were eating the grass. These 16 days were called the Dead March. I cannot describe those 16 days. People were dying on the road every minute. The Germans shot the people that were not able to continue walking. It was April, still cold. 2 times they let us rest. One night they let us lay down under the bridge. bridge was snow and some ice, the head of the Nazi said to us, "You can sleep here under the bridge a couple hours, and the ground will be your mattress, and the sky will be your blanket."
So what she's experiencing or was talking about is at the end of the war, like what you would hope to be, I'm imagining every day, is hoping for a liberation, freedom from everything that's happening. And as the Allied troops, the enemies of the Nazis, that would be the United States, Great Britain, as they were closing in, the Nazis, they knew that if we have these concentration camps and if we have these death camps, if the Allies find us here, all the guards, we're going to get in big trouble. So they said, let's go take all these prisoners that we have and let's move them closer inside Germany, or let's move them to a different camp. So it was what was called the Death March. And so right when you think that maybe the worst is over, you now had to go, as she had mentioned, 16 days on this horrific journey, just trying to get to the next place where it's horrible again. And then I also just want to point out, in case you didn't catch it, she was mentioning that the Nazi had got in a message saying to all the prisoners, hey, the war is essentially over, or I'm sorry, not the war, we are essentially going to be leaving you at this camp. The guards are going to essentially run away. And they said, I want to make sure I'm saying it right, that when people ask about you, I want you to tell them that we were good to you. These are the same people that have kept them in camps, but yet they were asking for mercy on the way that they were running away. So it's unbelievable to have asked that.
The marchers arrived in Theresienstadt in the morning, April 29. After 16 days of walking 20 to 25 miles, the march started from Markleberg, and there were 1,539 prisoners total. When we arrived to Theresienstadt after 16 days and night, we were only 585 people left. The International Red Cross took over the camp. The rest of the Nazis fled the area. The first Russian soldier appeared on May 8. We were in quarantine for 3 weeks because of the typhus epidemic. A couple of days later, I had typhus. I was very sick. 104 temperature, amazingly survived the typhus. Then I always had in my mind, now I am free. When I'm going to be stronger, I can go home. I was so much afraid about it, if I'm going home and nobody will be home.
So we're getting near the end of the story where we finished the Death March. She's at Theresienstadt, which is where the music was from that you just heard about. And for many of the survivors, the worst was not over. That even when it's official, the Nazis have lost, they are leaving the camps, that now they have to go and deal with trying to recover and get over the diseases that are prevalent in all of these different camps. So you mentioned typhus was something that was grounded that you had later. Thousands of people, even after like they essentially finally got that moment of freedom, thousands of people still died just because they were so close to the edge and then ended up passing away due to being malnourished or whatever disease was in that camp. And then so now that you had finally come to the end of your time at the camps, can you explain the transition to the next part of your life?
About 2 months later, the doctor told me I can go home. I started shaking. I was sad. I was happy. I was afraid. The Russian army gave us a passport and they helped us to go on the train. The following day, we arrived in Budapest, Hungary. The Jewish family service was waiting for us, and they took us to the hospital. We had a nice shower, dinner, and after a year, I was sleeping in a bed. It was like a miracle. Bed, white pillow and blanket. From Budapest, I had to take another train to go home, my real home. It took about 5 hours. When I came down from the train, I recognized my neighbor who was traveling someplace else. He didn't say a word, just shook his head, meaning that nobody came home. I was thinking the only way I can solve my life is commit a suicide. I don't want to live. When I reached my home, a bunch of young boys were playing football and they were just starting at me. When I arrived at home, my dear cat was sitting in the front of the door. I picked her up and she was so happy. She recognized me. She started to lick me, like asking me, "Where have you been so long?" The cat was skin and bones. The neighbor told me she didn't eat anything, just always sitting at the front door waiting for you. One of our neighbors saw me in front of my home. She was a good friend of my mother. She told me that our house is completely empty. People took everything out. She wants me to go to her house and that I could stay with her. I went to the house, and I fall asleep. I had a nightmare. I was seeing Dr. Mengele and all the Nazis in my dream. I was screaming. My dear neighbor woke me up. Later, I heard our family doctor got back from the concentration camp, and he was already practicing. I went to see him. He was happy to see me, and he told me he's going to build me up. He told me he is sending me to a nice sanatorium for 3 weeks. About 25 young girls are there already. They are in the same situation like you. He said, maybe hopeful in the 3 weeks, someone will be coming home for you. I went to the sanatorium Sunday morning. The same night, somebody was knocking on my door. The nurse was looking for me. I went out, and my neighbor's son was there and said, "Ilona, come home. I have a good news. Your father is home." I felt like I was dreaming, shaking and crying from happiness. I told him, "Let's go." He said to me, "What are you talking about? 9 o'clock at night, and there is no transportation to go from the sanatorium to your home, about 40 kilometers. I told him, "I don't care, let's walk." We walked, and I was retired. I felt like a new person. My father is home all night and got home about 9 a.m. The following day, my father was waiting for me at our neighbor's house. My father was skin and bones. He was in Mauthausen concentration camp. And now you. Okay.
Yeah, so that, again, is this amazing story that she's been through everything. And it's not just only her story, but a lot of people at the very end of this insane ordeal, what do you come home to when the majority of your family is gone? And so coming in, let's believe that you thought that your entire family was gone. But then the amazing news was that the doctor that she knew said, "No, you're fine," because the home was empty. And then she goes and finds your cat, which was nice, I'm sure, to go and see again. And then you go and see an empty home. But then when you see the doctor says, hey, your father is alive. And you can't imagine the feeling, of being able to see that. So that was quite the ordeal. Can you tell us about your life after the Holocaust? Like years later on? So with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
So like, in my notes it says about 2 years later, your father got married?
My father. Yeah.
Yeah.
The story. In 1944, March 19, Hitler marching. Oh, I'm already
Yeah.
on.
Go ahead. I have it. It was like, that's right.
Yeah. So now, after 75 years, I still have a nightmare. And I still have a horrible, horrible dream. I can't sleep. I hardly can sleep. I don't know how I'm able to alive. I can't sleep. I have a dream, and I hear Mengele yelling, and the German hearing us. And the other night, in my dream, I went to the what do you call it? The gas chamber. And I was trying to save my money in my dream. I was trying to save my mama and my sister. And I got them. And I was holding their hand, and I was walking out trying to walking out from the gas chamber. And then when I arrived to the door was closed, and we were staying in the gas chamber. That's my life all the time. Since 75 years, every day I'm crying. I miss my mother, I miss my family. And
So it's been with you for a long time. So we have...
And 2 years later, my father got married. She was also a Holocaust survivor. In 1949, I got married, also a Holocaust survivor. In 1957, we left Hungary and came to America with our daughter, who was 6 years old. Here in America, my daughter married, and now have 2 granddaughters who are also married, and 4 great, beautiful, gorgeous grandsons. They are my whole life. I have a beautiful family. In 2005, I lost my husband, and I miss him a lot.
Thank you again for telling us your story. So we have...
I can tell you story for years and years. I have a whole heavy book. That's hardly nothing what I can tell you, but you don't have time to listen to me forever.
I wish. One of the last questions that I have for you is, we have 300 people here that are listening to every word that you're saying. And what do you hope to accomplish? Because I would imagine that this is not the easiest thing to talk to us about. What is your hope that we walk away from hearing your story?
What was the hope?
What do you hope, what message do you have for us?
What message? Well, I hope everybody learned the hard way what happened in 1944. And I hope with all my heart, no more hate, no more war, no more, if you are Jewish or you are a Catholic or you are an immigrant or you are colored, just respect each other. And that's the most important thing. Love each other, respect each other, and be nice. I have a few short, can I read this? Dear children, I feel very honored to be here today. I can share my painful life with you. Thank you very, very much for all of you want to be here today. My only wish to you, being a good, grown-up people, live in peace, respect each other, no hate because different religion or different color or a different nationality. We all have the same God. Nothing can be worse than the hate and the war. Respect your teacher, respect your parents, respect yourself, then you are going to be a happy person inside yourself. I wish all of you well, lots of love, and good future. God bless you. And also the teacher. Dear teachers, thank you very, very much. You bring us today together. You work very, very hard to make this special day happening. God bless all of you teachers. Love you, Ilona. Thank you. Peace and peace, nothing else, peace.
Yeah, I think that's.
And people love each other, no hate, no killing. Like the parents send their kids to the school and they kill some kids going to the school and kill the teacher, kill their kids. It's awful, it's awful. It's unbelievable. I hope never, never, ever, ever happen again.
Well, I know I speak for everyone here when we are so humbled to have you share your story. It was incredible to have you here.
That's a small story, very small. I tried my best, but you should read the book what I got.
Thank you so much again.
Unbelievable.
We have a couple of students that are give us a gift. Can come on up. So we have Lucy, Josh, and Boyd and Connor.
And thank you for all of you kids and the teachers and everybody came here and listened to my story. And that's amazing. It's amazing. It's a wonderful feeling for me because everybody has to know what happened.
Yeah, thank you so
What
much
happened,
again.
and be good and respect everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, sixth graders. Thank you for coming. Today we will be playing two pieces for you. One piece is based on poetry from children who died during the Holocaust. The second piece is based on the Israeli national anthem as well as Jewish folk music. But before we perform these for you today, we need to give you a little bit of background information on the pieces. So the first piece is called Scenes from Terezin, okay? And it was based on children's poems and artwork that were created by the prisoners that were in Theresienstadt, okay? Theresienstadt was one of the ghettos, okay, that people were sent to. It was in fact considered to be a model ghetto. So that was what was supposed to be the best one that the Jews could go to, which is awful to think about because they're being sent away from their families, they're being disconnected from everyone that they love, and they're being sent to this place where they weren't going to have enough food for themselves. They didn't have a place to necessarily sleep. Okay, they had not enough water, not enough clothing for everybody that fit themselves. So they might have been wearing something that was like 3 sizes too big. In the wintertime when it was cold, they didn't have a coat. They might not have had shoes to wear. Okay, so they were placed in this ghetto, and it's located right now outside of Prague, and it was created as a cover-up of the Nazi genocide of the Jews. So what happened was they created this ghetto And on the outskirts of the ghetto, they put in everything that you could think that a community would need. So they had a bank, they had a school, but on the inside of the ghetto, past everything, was everything that was just terrible that you could imagine. And I'll show you some pictures of that right now so that you can see. So you can see on the left-hand bottom corner here, that's what it would look like inside, okay? And the right-hand top corner, that's where there's a memorial today for it, okay? And we learned about our concentration camps and how on the top of the left-hand corner, our White tribe was on almost every single concentration camp as you entered, okay? So those are just some pictures to give you guys an idea of what they had to live through and endure while they were in this ghetto. It's important to note that today we are performing this piece in memory of those children who perished, but also to honor our guest today, Alonia Fisher-Havas, who was a prisoner in the Terezin camp, survived the experience, and is here later today to give an interview for you. These pieces of art and poems that the music are based off of were put together in a book. The book itself is right here. It's called I Never Saw Another Butterfly, okay? And inside the book, and I'll give it to Mr. Catoni so you can look through everything and you guys can have a chance to see it very fast. But inside the book, there's all sorts of pictures and poems that were written by children about your age. And these children were all very soon after everything happened, deported to Auschwitz and perished there. So you'll have a chance to see, I'm going to show you in a moment, the pictures from I Never Saw Another Butterfly. So here's just some ideas of the pictures that they have. They didn't have tons of they didn't always have tons of paper nearby that they were going to be able to write or draw with, okay? They didn't have all sorts of utensils that you're going to see like in Mrs. Frederick's classroom, okay? A lot of this stuff they had to find nearby or were things that people brought with them, okay? So a lot of the paper that they wrote on may have had something else written on it already. It might have had some other meaning to it prior to that. Okay. Here you can see another piece of artwork. So this is something that they depicted from what was happening in the ghetto, what they saw happen to the people that they were around, the people that they loved and cared about. Okay. Here's a couple more poems that you'll see that were written. Some of them we know who they're written by. We have information cataloged about when they lived and when they were deported into a concentration camp and when they passed away too. But some of them we have no idea. So this one, for example, is anonymous. Okay. You can see here, here's an example of somebody had drawn a picture of a Nazi and a Jew, and the Jew is depicted by the Star of David. And the Nazi has a Nazi uniform as well as a stick. Oftentimes they were beaten in these ghettos. They were not allowed to have any sort of communication with home, so if they wrote a letter, they were killed. If that letter was smuggled out by somebody, that person was also killed. So terrifying things like this were happening every day in this ghetto. So in the piece, Scenes from Terezin, that we're performing for you today, there are multiple movements or parts of a whole song. And we're performing 3 of them. Those are the 3 that we chose. Each one of them has a main musical idea in it. that musical idea is going to go through each of the pieces. You'll be able to hear that, okay? Each different instrument group will show it off in some point in time. But it's hard to always hear it because the composer took it and they might have stretched it out to make it sound more longing. They might have shortened it to make it sound more of a statement type. So right now what I want you to do is you're going to listen to the French horns. They're the ones that are going to start the piece. So this first idea is actually going to be played by them. With each of the pieces, there's a poem that we're going to have read by one of the students, and then they'll give you a little information on the biography of that child that wrote that poem. So the one thing I want to let you know about now is this is not music that you guys are used to hearing, okay? And it's not something that you hear every day on the radio. It's not going to be something that's going to bring joy to you, okay? This music is probably going to make you feel a little uncomfortable, okay? And it's something that's meant to be sad and show the pain and the grief that people felt during that time. So I want you to know and understand that when you hear this, it might be a little different from what you're used to, okay?
An evening in tourism. The sun goes down and everything is silent. Only at the guard's posts are heavy footfalls heard. That's the guard who watches his Jews to make sure they don't run away from the ghetto, or that an Aryan aunt or uncle doesn't try to get in. 10 o'clock strikes suddenly, and the windows of Dresden's barracks darken. The women have a lot to talk about. They remember their homes and dinners they made. Then some of them argue. Others try to quiet them down. Finally, one by one, they grow silent. They toss and turn, and in the end, they fall asleep. How many more evenings will we have to live like this? We do not know. Only God knows. Eva Schultzova was born on July 20th, 1931. She died in Auschwitz on December 18th, 1943.
Much of the artwork that the children drew were meant to bring their spirits up and help them feel some sort of happiness in the sadness that they lived in. When many Jews were deported, they took with them clothes, household items, special trinkets, or pictures of loved ones. But one woman, Friedel Brandheis, instead took art supplies with her. Friedel became a very important figure in Theresian by helping to teach children how to draw and paint. She gave them all of her paper and supplies and encouraged them to express their emotions and feelings through art therapy. This was her way of helping the children in Theresian break away from the horror that they were living in. You can see in many of the pieces of artwork that the children drew their homes or places that they longed to be. The next movement we'll perform for you now is just about that longing to be home.
I look into the wide world, into the wide distant world. I look to the southeast. I look toward my home. I look toward my home. The city where I was born, city, my city. I will gladly return to you. Barnabas was born on September 4th, 1930. He was deported to Theresian in 1941 and died in Auschwitz on October 28, 1944.
One of the most beautiful poems out of the book is called Bird Song. This movement reflects on the freedom of a bird based on the poem. The last movement of this first piece is meant to remind us all to take a moment to pause and be thankful for our freedom.
He doesn't know the world at all, who stays in his nest and doesn't go out. He doesn't know what birds know best, nor what I want to sing about, that the world is full of loveliness. When dewdrops sparkle in the grass, and earth's aflood with morning light, a blackbird sings upon a bush to greet the dawning after night. Then I know how fine it is to live. Hey, try to open up your heart to beauty. Go to the woods someday and leave a wraith of memory there. And if the tears obscure your way, you'll know how wonderful it is to be alive. 1941, Anonymous.
away from, just a moment from the Holocaust itself. We're going to look a little bit at the Jewish culture. Okay? Within the Jewish culture, klezmer music is perhaps one of the oldest forms of traditional music. It usually consists of dance tunes and is performed at celebrations like weddings, for example. Klezmer groups usually have clarinets, saxophones, string instruments in them, and they're able to distort their sound in a way to attempt to act like the human voice. So I'm going to show you now, I'll bring down the screen, I'm going to show you a group called Gesundheit, okay? And they're a group that performs klezmer music all over today.
Music is traditional Jewish music from the old country, kind of what is now Poland, Russia, and really started in the diaspora in the 20s and the great Yiddish theaters all throughout New York, and developed from there. They brought with them their music and combined with American jazz and culture and created this new music that we now call klezmer. We're not all Jewish, but we all love Jewish culture and especially klezmer music. You saw us at the Eastern Market. We were schwitzing out there, but we had a lot of fun just playing Jewish music for anybody that wanted to listen. Klezmer music specifically lives to spirit. The Jewish people have a very long history that's filled with sadness, but also a lot of celebration. You know, it kind of goes hand in hand with the humor. The humor is always tinged with a little bit of
Sorry, I'll stop there. Okay. And so the next piece that we're going to perform for you today, this is the last piece, it's called Hatikva. And this piece is a mixture of Jewish folk music as well as the Israeli national anthem. Hatikva means the hope in English. So it comes from a poem that talks about the hope of returning to the land of Israel, restoring it and reclaiming it as a free nation. And if you guys know a little bit about our national anthem started as a poem. And then there was music that was put to that poem. And this is the same for the Israeli national anthem. So up here you can see the English text, and then over here you can see the Hebrew text as well. And so we're going to perform for you now Hatikva, and it has a little bit of a different flavor than the last piece did. Okay? we're going to wait for a couple of minutes, clear off the stage, and reset it for you guys for your interview. Thank you.
So right now, you can quietly stretch for like